Okay. All right, folks. So, trust y'all are doing well. I'm going to give you part two of my experiences with the Orbs. Uh, you may recall if you saw the first video, first had experience with the Orbs slash flying things um, at the scout camp out of north of Baton Rouge. Um, in 1990. So the first time again was 11 p.m. Friday 13th, 1990. Um, so let's go back to that real quick. After that event, it was right at the end of my senior year in school. And for whatever reason, math was never my best class. But for whatever reason, I had a math class this semester. I think it was my last semester. And for whatever reason, I got along well with the teacher, and I would visit her during her office hours for additional assistance. And as it turned out, we enjoyed each other's company, and we got along, and we had a nice time together. And so I told her, I ended up telling her talking to her about what happened at this time. And I was just kind of in jest, if you will, just in conversation. I told her, I said, well, one day perhaps I'll take you up there and go over that with you. So, to be honest, never in a million years did I think that would actually happen. So, right after that, I graduated. A month or two after that, maybe a month, I don't know. And I ended up finding work. The job I got, they sent me to Miami, Florida, and then ended up in North Carolina. So a year or two later, I ended up back in school, trying to go to graduate school in landscaping, and I went ahead and got a hold of my teacher friend, and now that we're not student teacher, I had invited her out, and so we started to go out, started dating, and we enjoyed taking off and just saying, hey, let's go out, and then we would randomly go out wherever and just take rides. It was nice. And on one of those occasions, I said, I said to her, hey, would you like to go up to the scout camp and see, let that whole story unfold, in real world, live, if you will. So we headed up, and so I don't remember the exact date of this. It's around 92, okay, 92, 93, something like that. But we ended up going to the scout camp, and if you recall, I was trying to explain earlier, for whatever this is worth, when you go into the camp, or or better said, if you're looking down at like on a map, topographical map on aerial view, there's 3 lakes, 1, 2, 3, spread out throughout the property. And where we were, you come in through the gate, we call it the front entrance because there's a rear entrance that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So we come in the front entrance, and just shortly after you take a right, and that meanders back to the second lake. So we went out there, and we were just kind of hanging out a while, and I was pointing and explaining the story and so forth. And we were sitting out on the tailgate, watching the stars and talking, and then out of nowhere had come another orb. And now I find this interesting in many respects because I had been going to the scout camp at this time for, let's say, 12 years, maybe 15. And I lived there at least 2 summers. And I have never, to my recollection, never, not once, seen anything or heard of anything from anyone of anything like this. And so I find it fascinating that these things are happening, are coming up now. Secondly, I find it it was interesting that I was actually more scared, if you will, on this second go around than the first time, if this makes sense to you, because I was reliving all of the first thing. And so it was, so I'm getting a double dose, if you will, of not only seeing it now, but reliving the first time. So in that sense, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say getting a double dose of it. So I was really shooken up. But this one was a much smaller one. This one, so again, in retrospect, the other one was about somewhere between the size of a soccer ball or a basketball. This one was about the size of a softball. Again, there's no noise, no protruding lights, just a solid sphere. And but this one was changing different colors, blue, green, purple, and it was just kind of flying around, and then it seemed to have direction in its course, and kind of doing what the last one did, if you recall in that story, cruising across the lake and heading over that tree line, ultimately back to the third lake on the back of the property. So I told her, I said, and I've got a 4-wheel drive truck at the time, for whatever that's worth. But I said, I do know this was in the winter. I do know that it was in the winter time. And I said, get in the truck, let's go. And I'm flying down. I've got to come way back around and then go over the dam, if you will, where the road's built up alongside the lake to get to the other side. And then I get over there and I see it. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Let's follow this thing. She agreed. And it went out. It started going out off the property at the back gate, which and that back gate is usually locked, and but it came out and took a left, and and we went ahead and went out and followed it. And so now we're on this road, regular asphalt road. And, and now this thing is just floating around behind people's houses, just where they were totally oblivious to it. And we followed this for several miles until it took off in another direction. And then, interestingly, um, we we continued to go back several times uh, throughout the year, and found that for whatever reason in the wintertime we'd see them versus the summer. Um, but we saw, I'm going to say, anywhere within a year or two, 10 to 15 of them, something like that, a variety of different colors and shapes, all of them roughly the same size between a softball and a soccer ball. Um, and and I don't really know what else to tell you about them. I did hear there was a YouTube video the other day. Someone was noting, uh, was pointing out something that they're well aware of ones that are exactly the same size that I'm telling you that I saw the first time, and this individual is talking about those things having the abilities to shapeshift and or give the appearance, of different craft. And I found that interesting because, again, that's exactly what the first one did. Because initially we thought the first one was a plane, and then we thought it was a helicopter. And then clearly and very obviously it was nothing, neither of those. So I did have to admit that I heard all kind of theories like the swamp gas. Um, on the one hand, I want to say that's BS, and I'm pretty much hold to that theory. But I have to admit, I do have to admit that at the second and third lake, on one side of it, where where it butts up to the woods, that can be swampy slash like bogs, and would be the perfect environment during the wintertime for a ground in a bog that has a warmer temperature and releasing some gases and allowing it to float and rise and completely randomly fly off with the air. So I must concede, as as a matter of, I guess I'm going to say, intelligence, that theory is there. So if someone pointed their finger at me and said, "Oh, this is what it, has to be what it is, or it is what it is, or possible," I have to admit that that is a possibility. Now, it's my contention that it's not, only because the first one I can tell you is definitely not. That thing had complete perfect mathematical angle lines and trajectories, with extreme definitive intelligence. There's just no way possible, period. Now the other ones, They all seem to have a random intelligence to me as well, but I still have to admit that you know that's what it something that it could be. Um, I say it wasn't, but okay. Now, in hindsight, and I hadn't even thought about this till recently. Um, there's a whole bunch of different orbs. A lot of them you can only see at night when you take photos. In fact, I have a friend of mine uh, who did this by accident. She had a beautiful property. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with Theo Vaughn. He's an up and coming comedian and has a talk show host now. He's a YouTuber. Theo is from Covington, Louisiana, and my friend was out in the countryside just north of there. And she lived out on a beautiful property that she secured next to her mother's place. Her and her husband went out there. He died, and com- out of complete randomness, she took a photo of something with her camera at night with her cell phone and started to find these orbs, things that are not readily available with the naked eye. And then, so in addition, uh, she started to enlarge them, and she found that she could start seeing photos like a photograph, just a image that your mind can play tricks and determine what that is. I forget what that scientific term is, but these are more like an actual photo. You take a photograph and you put it into um, something random in the air in this orb that you can't even see. You take a picture of it and then you blow it up. It's just the most fascinating thing, just mind blowing. So she started to do this more randomly, and she noticed that most of the photos were of her husband and some other folks. And she started to do this so much, word got out, and she ended up doing it as a tourist thing. And and I know others do, including like the picture that I grabbed off the internet for you, just to have on there as a picture for this. That is not my picture. I did not take that picture. I don't know anything about that. Um, Sadly, most of my events were prior to cell phones and cameras, and I wasn't ever expecting anything to come up to be prepared for it. And unfortunately, anything and everything I tell you about all my experiences, including recent, where I did have cameras, so to speak, but were not available and they were not working. That's part three. Um, so I still have nothing to show you. Um, so so I found that interesting that the orbs. Like I said, I just thought about that. A lot of them you can't see with the naked eye. Sometimes some you can. Um, Now, if you're part, because this is a paranormal video and in the psychic paranormal realm. So if you're a paranormal, or if you have, better said, if you have paranormal abilities, especially if you're a messenger, um, you can see a pattern of oftentimes people who have loved ones that have recently passed, or at any time, like a grandparent or a great grandparent. They will often have orbs around them that they do or do not see. Um, that are visible to the naked eye or not. So that's another scenario. Um, but that's my story with the orbs. Um, I do not recall seeing any more after about 2 or 3 years of visiting the Scout Ranch. So somewhere between for the record, I'll say between 91 and 93, 94, somewhere around there. Um, that was the last time that I seen those to my recollection. So if you have any experiences that you would like to share, please feel free. And I'll get into part three, perhaps over this weekend, and start to get into the mother of all stories with the spaceship and everything. Okay, we'll see you later.